Welcome to the family of warriors, a place where we refuse to sit back and allow the forces of darkness to swallow us. Instead, we rise up boldly with spiritual weapons in our hands, ready to fight and claim the victory that belongs to us. If you are here, it shows that you are tired of being attacked again and again. You are tired of watching enemies mock you as if they are in control, and you are now ready to see them fall into the same traps they created for you. Too many people walk through life blind to the battles happening in the unseen realm, believing everything they face is natural. But the truth is that the enemy works day and night through witchcraft, curses, and evil words to block destinies. You are no longer blind, you are awake. As part of this family of fighters, you are about to learn a spiritual secret that will break chains of witchcraft and force your enemies to lose control quickly. Wicked powers often operate through contact points. They use soil, dust, footprints, and strange powders to manipulate lives. They bury items in the ground, scatter powders at night, and imagine no one will ever find out. What they do not realize is that God has already given us holy and powerful elements, which once prayed over become mighty, weapons that scatter their works faster than lightning. One of these divine secrets lies in the very ground they try to manipulate. Sand carries deep meaning in the spirit, and when it is used properly, it destabilizes whatever the enemy tries to build. The second element is salt. Salt purifies, it burns, and it destroys secret covenants made in hidden places of darkness. Each is strong on its own, but when combined they become an explosive back-to-sender weapon that causes witchcraft to crumble instantly. When you release this mixture of sand and salt on the ground after prayer, you are not carrying out an empty ritual. You are declaring war. You are sending a message in the spirit that wherever your enemies gather, they will scatter. Wherever curses are raised, they will collapse. Wherever evil plans are written against you, confusion will fill their camp until they go mad under the weight of their own schemes. Understand clearly that this is not superstition and it is not guesswork. This is spiritual warfare backed by divine principles. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but we use the weapons God has placed in our hands to overthrow the works of darkness. Sand and salt are not just ordinary materials. When consecrated with prayer, they become sharp instruments of battle. And now you are going to learn how to use them to turn the fight in your favor. Stay close, fighter, because in this teaching we will uncover the power of sand, the mystery of salt, and the unstoppable force of combining the two. You will learn how to use them so your enemies lose control so quickly that they will be forced to confess or collapse. This revelation has been hidden from many people, but today you are receiving it openly. Sand may appear ordinary to natural eyes, yet in the spirit it carries powerful meaning. Every grain of sand speaks of countless numbers. When you use sand in prayer warfare, you summon the power of uncountable confusion against those who rise against you. Sand is endless, and when the enemy comes up against you, sand represents them being scattered beyond number. They cannot regroup. They cannot stand together again. The enemy seeks stability, but sand represents instability. You cannot hold sand tightly in your hand. It slips away. It shifts with the wind. It refuses to stay fixed. That is exactly what your enemies will experience. Their plans will lose grip, fall apart, and scatter into nothingness. In many dark practices, witches use dust or soil because they know the earth connects to foundations, destinies, and the works of men. But they forget that the Creator made sand to be a witness of scattering. When you declare with sand, you are commanding their works to turn back into dust, powerless and without root. Think of how sand burns the eyes when wind carries it, it blinds, it disorients, and it makes one lose direction. In the same way, when you release prayed-over sand against the enemy's camp, their spiritual eyes of divination are blinded. Their monitoring spirits are blocked, and their direction is lost. They cannot see you, trace you, or touch you. Sand also speaks of time. Like sand in an hourglass, it reminds us that every wicked worker has only a limited time. When you release sand in warfare, you are announcing that the time of your enemies is finished. Their season of mocking you is over. Their chance to attack you has expired, and judgment has come upon them. Evil workers love to build lasting foundations, but sand is never solid. It shifts, it collapses, and it cannot carry weight for long. This is the prophecy you make when you use sand, that every foundation of witchcraft against your life will fall apart, that every altar raised against you will collapse like a house built on unstable ground. You must also know that sand creates confusion because it is countless. When you scatter a handful of sand, it is impossible to gather back the same grains. The enemy may try to regroup themselves, but they will never be the same again. Their plots will stay broken, their unity destroyed, and their strength dissolved. That is why when you use sand in spiritual battle, you are employing a weapon that guarantees scattering, blindness, instability, and confusion, while also declaring that your enemy's time is up. This is why an ordinary element becomes extraordinary when consecrated with prayer. It is a weapon that drives enemies into madness as their foundations collapse beneath them. Salt is far more than seasoning for food. Spiritually, salt is a purifier, a preserver, and a destroyer of hidden works of darkness. Wherever there is corruption, salt cleanses. Wherever there is decay, salt preserves. Wherever there is filth, salt burns. Salt carries covenant power, which is why witches and dark powers fear it when it is prayed over. Salt never loses its strength. When you use salt in warfare, you are reminding the spirit world of the eternal covenant of victory and preservation on your life. Evil powers may speak curses, but salt declares that you are sealed, that you are covered, and that your destiny will not be corrupted. In the natural, salt stings when placed on a wound. Spiritually, it works the same. When you release salt against an enemy's camp, it stings them. It burns their altars and irritates their spirits. They cannot sit at ease. They cannot work in peace. The salt of prayer becomes fire in their dwelling places. Salt also drives away unclean spirits. For ages, consecrated salt has been used to cleanse homes, gates, and thresholds. It forms a barrier demons cannot cross, a shield that witchcraft cannot break, and a sign that this territory belongs to God. Just as salt preserves meat from rotting, it preserves destinies from destruction. Witches often release spells to spoil your blessings, to weaken opportunities, and to waste your progress. But when you apply salt in prayer, you declare preservation. Your blessings will not be spoiled. Your opportunities will not decay. Your marriage, your health, your finances will stay sealed and protected. Salt also symbolizes fire because it changes whatever atmosphere it touches. Evil atmospheres cannot stand in the presence of consecrated salt. It cleanses, it purifies, it exposes hidden darkness. That is why witches fear it. It burns their offerings, interrupts their covenants, and overturns their works. A small portion of prayed-over salt carries more power in the spirit than their heaps of sacrifices. Where salt is released, corruption ends. And where corruption ends, witchcraft loses its grip instantly. Now consider the strength of sand and salt combined. Sand scatters, salt burns. Sand destabilizes, salt purifies. When the two are joined, they release a spiritual explosion. Enemies cannot survive. This mixture is feared because it attacks from every side. It leaves no space for witchcraft to hide. When you release sand and salt together, you are not only scattering your enemies, you are also cleansing their altars. The sand breaks their unity, the salt burns their sacrifices, the sand blinds their eyes, the salt rots their works. Together they ensure nothing of the enemy's plan is left standing. Those who practice dark works often bury charms in the ground to tie people's foundations. But when you release the mixture of sand and salt, you are striking directly at those buried items. The sand uproots, the salt corrodes, and whatever they planted is destroyed. They cannot recover it. They cannot repair it. They cannot rework it. Think of it this way. Sand introduces confusion. Salt introduces fire. When confusion and fire enter the enemy's camp, the result is madness. They lose their direction, they burn in their own traps, and they begin to turn against each other. That is why many testify that after using this mixture, enemies suddenly confess, scatter, and destroy themselves without you lifting another hand, or face the weight of their own curses. Another mystery about this mixture is that sand stands for countless grains, while salt stands for an unbreakable covenant. When joined together, it declares that countless forces may rise against you, but they will collapse under the firm covenant of your preservation. You multiply their confusion while sealing your triumph. The enemy understands the language of these elements. That is why witches tremble when they see people of faith applying sand and salt after prayer. They know it is not ordinary. They recognize it signals battle. They know it announces the end of their assignments. Even the most stubborn spirits cannot withstand when sand and salt are released with authority. When you speak over this mixture, never think it is superstition. It is a spiritual law in action. The ground they used against you now turns against them. The altars they built are falling apart. The same dust they sent against your destiny is now blended with salt and sent back to tear theirs down. It is a perfect reversal. That is why dropping sand and salt on the earth is not a simple gesture. It is a prophetic action, a tool of deliverance, a back-to-sender command. It is not the material itself, but the faith and prayer behind it that makes it powerful. And when done rightly, your enemies will lose grip so fast you will be amazed at how quickly the battle shifts in your favor. Many fail to understand that spiritual battles are not only fought with words, but also with chosen elements that speak in the unseen realm. When you rise at the midnight hour with sand and salt in your hands, you are not performing a show. You are stepping into prophetic action that shakes the pillars of witchcraft. I have seen people who were constantly oppressed until they embraced this act. They prayed, they fasted, yet the attacks continued. Then they mixed sand with salt, prayed over it, and released it in warfare. Suddenly, enemies began fighting among themselves. Some confessed, some lost strength, and others simply disappeared. That is the power you are learning today. You might not see it with your natural eyes, but in the spirit realm, this mix becomes a storm in the enemy's camp. It is like fire and whirlwind together. The instant it touches the ground, confusion spreads, monitoring spirits scatter, and the very earth that once carried curses now works as a witness for your freedom. Never underestimate the authority you carry when you do this. Too many people think only prophets or pastors can win such battles. No, you also are a fighter. You too can rise. Declare and watch God back your words with might. Sand and salt are within your reach, and when you consecrate them, they become weapons in your hands. Imagine living under constant surveillance, where every move you make seems tracked by enemies. When you drop this mixture, you break that power of monitoring. It blinds them immediately. Suddenly, their ability to trace you is broken. They lose direction while you gain peace. That is how practical this spiritual battle is. In your house, you can use this as a covering of protection at your doors, in your yard, or at the corners of your home. When you pray and drop sand mixed with salt, you are sealing the ground against intruders of darkness. Spirits that once had entry will find barriers. Enemies that once had strength will find confusion awaiting them. This message should open your eyes to the truth that you are not left without defense. You belong to a family of fighters who know how to turn simple things into mighty weapons through faith. You don't need to be afraid anymore. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, and now you carry the authority to act. Now it is time to move from learning into practice. Spiritual knowledge without action leaves people exposed. But when you apply what you have learned, the enemy cannot resist. This is where sand and salt become a declaration of war. This is where you stand and tell the kingdom of darkness, enough is enough. Take a handful of clean sand and combine it with a handful of salt. Hold it in your right hand and lift it in prayer. Declare that every grain of sand brings confusion into the enemy's camp, and every grain of salt becomes fire consuming their works. Speak with boldness, for your words carry power when spoken in faith. At midnight, step outside or stand at the place you feel directed. Pray over the mixture, declaring, "As I drop this sand and salt, I scatter the works of my enemies. As I release this mixture, I announce their time is finished. Their eyes are blind, their foundations collapse, and their curses return to them." Say it with authority as one who knows heaven is backing you. Then drop the mixture to the ground. Do not look back. Do not doubt. Walk away assured that what you did has shifted things in the spirit. The sand is scattering them. The salt is burning them. Their confusion is manifesting even as you stand in faith. What could not be achieved through fleshly struggle has now been accomplished through spiritual warfare. After dropping it, remain in prayer. Thank God for the victory. Cover yourself and your family with protection. Ask for divine peace to rest upon you, and declare that no counterattack shall rise against you. This seals the act, ensuring that your enemies collapse under their own evil while you remain safe. Understand that when you activate this mixture, you are not playing with superstition. You are making a prophetic decree that witches and workers of darkness instantly recognize. Their spirits will sense it, and they will know their time is over. That is why many enemies confess after such acts. They cannot endure the power released. This is the back-to-sender command that makes enemies lose balance, lose control, and scatter in confusion. It is the judgment they deserve for rising against a child of God. And once you perform it in faith, pay attention because testimonies will begin to unfold. Fighter, you now know the mystery of sand and salt, and you are no longer without defense. You have been armed with truth that witches, fear, and enemies cannot oppose. It is time to rise and act. Do not sit quietly while the enemy plays with your destiny. You have been given a weapon. Use it with courage. I urge you, do not delay. Tonight, raise your voice, mix your sand and salt, and declare battle. Show the enemy you are no longer a victim. You are a warrior in the family of fighters who take authority in the spirit. Watch what happens when you activate this simple yet mighty act. You will see your enemies lose their grip swiftly. As you do this, stay rooted in prayer. Watch over your life. Guard your home and declare over your loved ones. Share this message with others who are struggling under witchcraft pressure. Let them know they are not helpless. Let them know there is a way to fight back without fear. Too many suffer in silence because they lack knowledge. But today you are awakened, and you can awaken others. Do not keep this truth locked away. Speak it, share it, and spread it. Let every believer learn to fight and break chains of witchcraft with the authority they already possess. This family of fighters grows stronger each day. We pray, we act, we stand. And as you join with us, your victories will multiply. The same enemy who mocked you will soon either confess or collapse because you have discovered the mystery of warfare. You are not standing alone. You are part of a movement of warriors, rising with boldness. Stay awake, stay strong, and keep fighting. Keep pressing for more revelations. Keep praying with power and keep spreading truth. We will not stop until every curse falls, every altar burns, and every enemy scatters. This is Maya's watchtower, where truth is revealed, enemies are crushed, and victory is announced for every fighter in this family.